Hi, third graders, it's Miss Ashby. Today I'm going to talk to you as writers about planning your book. Good writers spend time before each book to really think about what they want to tell their reader. So today we're going to use a checklist. This checklist has different questions about your topic or about your story. You will answer those questions, and those answers will help you determine what you want your book to look like and what you want your book to say from the start to the finish. So, if I were a third grader at home, I would recommend grabbing a nonfiction text or a fiction text based on what you want to write today. I went ahead and grabbed both of those things because I know as a writer, I often use books that I know to do my planning. You will have access to a checklist that looks like this. You as a writer, you might decide to answer your questions and do all of your planning on this checklist, or maybe you're like Miss Ashby and you kind of like to do your planning in a notebook. So maybe you grab a notebook to answer those questions or kind of draw out or map what you want your book to look like. So our very first step as writers is we have to determine, are we writing a nonfiction book or are we going to write a fiction book? So a nonfiction book is going to tell you real facts. It's going to give the reader information about a topic. So this nonfiction book is about penguins. If you're interested in writing a nonfiction book today, I would recommend grabbing one so you can kind of determine some things that you as an author need to include in your book. If you as a writer are deciding today to write a fiction text, you might even grab a fiction book, a picture book or a chapter book, or maybe you're even using a book that you've read on Epic kind of as a guide to help you remember some of those things that fiction texts include in them. Today, I'm going to be writing a fiction text. I'm going to be planning my fiction text, but I want to kind of go over some of those nonfiction questions that you might answer as a writer if you're writing a nonfiction text today. So if you're writing a nonfiction text, some questions that you might ask yourself might be, what is my topic? The book that I showed you earlier today is all about penguins. So if you were going to write about penguins, you would put your answer right there. The next question, you might have to do a little bit of research, or you might have to think just a little bit longer about. What do you want your reader to know about your topic? What kind of nonfiction information do you want to give to your reader about penguins or about baseball, about that nonfiction topic that you're writing about? What questions do I have or want to know more about? I don't know everything there is to know about penguins, so as a writer, I might have to do a little bit of research on my own using my Chromebook or using the internet to answer some of those questions that I might want to know about. So maybe like the habitat, maybe families, what penguin families look like. From there, you need to determine where are you going to find this information. Is it going to come from a book? Is it going to come from the internet? Maybe it comes from Epic. Another question that you'll ask yourself is, what is your layout? So when you're thinking about layout, you're kind of thinking, what will my pages look like? Am I going to have captions? Am I going to have headings? Am I going to include a table of contents? Those are all really important questions to ask yourself as a writer, and you might even use that nonfiction text to help you do that. How will I hook my reader? How are you going to introduce your topic and make your reader excited about it? What photos will I include? What text features will I include? So that kind of goes back to that layout question, as in, am I going to add my headings? Am I going to add my captions? Am I going to add a table of contents into my text? Those are all really important questions that writers ask themselves before they begin a text. Today I'm going to be planning my fiction text. So I grabbed the book, The Teacher from the Black Lagoon, because today I'm going to be modeling writing a story based on this text. We know that writers often stand on the shoulders of other authors. So I'm going to take this text and write a story that's similar to it, but I'm going to kind of put my own twist to it, and I'm going to make it my own. So in the story, The Teacher from the Black Lagoon, it's about a student who goes to school and he finds out that his teacher is actually a monster, and she makes them do really, really crazy things. Or like when you ask a question, she might spit fire out at you, or to teach fractions, she eats a kid. And so I'm going to take this story, but I'm going to put my own perspective on it and write it in my own way. So today, as a writer, I'm actually going to be writing from the perspective of Miss Green. So instead of the perspective from the student of what the day looks like, I'm going to be writing like I am Miss Green, and I'm getting to meet my students for the very first time, and I'm thinking about all the crazy things that I'm going to make them do. So I'm going to go back to that checklist and really start to brainstorm what I want my book to look like. Who are my characters? Well, my most important character is Mrs. Green. She's the teacher, and she's a monster. A couple other students that I might include in my book. I'm going to have at least 5 students because I'm thinking about at least 5 things that I want Miss Green to do to those students. So I will have Sarah, Hannah, Jimmy, Abby, and Kevin. What do my characters want or want to do? So this is kind of like the plot of your story, the main idea of your story. My characters in this story are going to go to school and have Mrs. Green as a teacher. Mrs. Green is going to tell her perspective of being a mean teacher. Some conflicts they might have. The conflict in the story is Mrs. Green telling about her day and how she's frustrated with her students and how she will make them do those crazy things like turn them into a pencil and then maybe sharpen them in the pencil sharpener. Or maybe she'll talk about spelling and how instead of making kids spell things, she does a spell on them and turns them into something else. And the students in this situation won't technically solve it, but at the end of the day, they're going to go home and tell their parents, and then they won't return the next day. They're going to find a different school. What is my setting? So that's where my story takes place. My setting is school. How can I describe my characters? Oh, well, Mrs. Green, she is mean. She's a monster. She has red hair. She has claws. Trying to think of one more way to describe Mrs. Green. I'm going to say that she's hateful. What will happen in the beginning, middle, and end of my story? So I'm going to tell my story basically like a school day. So I'm kind of just describe it as the students coming in the morning. And just like in the morning in my classroom, we begin with math. And I'm going to talk about recess and how Mrs. Green probably won't let them go to recess. Talk a little bit about lunch. I'm going to talk a little bit about what might happen in specials. And then reading, writing, and the end of the day. I'm going to end my story with students going home and telling their families all the crazy things that Mrs. Green did. Here's just the start to my story. When you go to plan your own text today, you might not answer all of these questions. Maybe only begin with a couple of those questions. Maybe you brainstorm and start to set up your book, start to think about your illustrations, and then come back and add some more of those details as you continue your text. I am so excited to see the books that you come up with, to see some of the planning that you do, and then to see the books that you create as well. I hope you have an awesome day. Bye, third graders.